Hello and welcome to our presentation on DELMIA 3D Lean, applying lean principles with effective team collaboration. I'll be your host. My name is Adrian Wood. I'm Director of Strategy and Marketing for DELMIA. First thing I'd like you to notice is that in our presentation today, we are not using PowerPoint. We're actually using 3D Lean as the application to present and organize some of our material. 3D Lean is designed to facilitate discussion and collaboration and visualization of information, and I think it's a perfect way for us to show you exactly how 3D Lean works by using it to facilitate this presentation. So everything we're going to cover today is contained here in these specific topics. We're going to go through a brief introduction. We're going to talk about team challenges. We're going to talk about 3D Lean, and we're going to show you 3D Lean in action in 3 different use cases. Talk about some of the value and possibilities of using 3D Lean. There are numerous use cases that we think are very appropriate for 3D Lean. And we're going to talk about next steps. So let's start off by looking at a brief introduction to Dassault Systèmes and to DELMIA and 3D Lean itself. So first of all, just a brief introduction to Dassault Systèmes if you haven't heard of us. We're a significantly large organization, global in reach with 20,000 passionate people around the globe. And we have a number of partners in our ecosystem and hundreds of thousands of customers around the world. In terms of our purpose, one of the things that I just want to focus on here, and I'll use our annotation here just to make a quick note here. I wanted to point out that this is a key part of our purpose, is to drive sustainable operations and to provide solutions and experiences that drive sustainability in our world. It's a key part of our philosophy, and it's also a key part of how 3D Lean helps support that operation. So Dassault Systèmes is our company. DELMIA is the brand of Dassault that I specifically work for, and DELMIA is a key part of driving sustainable operations, and we enable virtual experiences and real-world evidence to enable sort of 3 aspects of organizations, and they are the workforce of the future, global optimization, and value network orchestration. And when we talk about these different areas, when we talk about the workforce of the future, we're really talking about the people aspect. And so here we're talking about workplace simulation, we're talking about collaboration, empowerment of people and teams, safety and autonomy. In terms of global optimization, what we're talking about here is more arranged around the planet. And in terms of the capabilities we provide here, we're talking about the modeling of our facilities, the optimization, and real-time operations and performance feedback. And finally, when it comes to value network orchestration, here we're talking about profit. That is, after all, why we're all in business. And here we're talking about the ability to model the stakeholders, the business goals, to provide decision support and lean operations, and to do it in a sustainable manner. So those are 3 areas that DELMIA supports in terms of the capabilities. And if we look just one level deeper very quickly at how we provide those capabilities, you can see it. There's a broad spectrum of different solutions and operational areas that we support in terms of processes, collaborative processes, the ability to model parts of the organization, to optimize our plans and then perform and actually drive execution. And this is a key part of the DELMIA brand, is that we really drive the ability to support not just the virtual world, but also the real world as well. And we bring those together in terms of the capabilities we provide. Now today, out of all these different operations, the one that we're going to talk about specifically, obviously, is lean operations. And we're going to talk about just one facet of the DELMIA support for operational processes across the organization in a bit more detail. So what is the need for lean operations in today's society and today's organizations? Well, if we take a look at what's happening in the industry, first of all, courtesy of some of our networking partners and some of the organizations that do a lot of analysis like Accenture and PwC and KPMG, there are a number of different areas that are highlighted in terms of industry trends and challenges. Reskilling and safety prioritization of the workforce. There's a greater focus on workforce automation. Supply chain resiliency, the ability to adapt, and part of that is being having an ability to be flexible and agile in our manufacturing capabilities. and also to maintain business continuity and operations. And all of these are areas that are very specific today during the pandemic that we're facing, but have been traditionally areas of focus for organizations. I think you can see how many of these relate to collaboration within organizations, how they relate to the workforce, how they relate to continuous improvement. And so lean and how teams work is a key part of all of these different challenges and play into that. Now, we're not going to cover specifics on lean principles and methodology in the presentation today. Needless to say, though, there are some significant foundational elements that represent lean operations and lean principles. We're showing just a few here in terms of waste and lean principles of Kaizen and customer first. And the key part that we want to talk about here is the fact that this is such an important part of lean operations that we have baked this into the 3D lean application, so it's at the heart of the application. It's really part of the DNA of the solution. And we're not going to cover it today, but we do have training materials on this very specifically around the philosophies. That's something you could take advantage of if you certainly would like to. But that's why we have developed the 3D lean application. It's a marriage of all of these different challenges and things that we need to take into account. The recognition that improvement comes from the people and the teams that are in place in your organization to support those challenges and to address them. And so 3D lean is, as it says here, using lean principles to guide team collaboration and improve performance. And that's going to be the focus of our presentation today. So let's start next by looking at some of the challenges that we have related to teams. If we agree that teams and the people that work for our organizations have a direct and significant impact on success and performance every day, what is it about the challenges that we face specifically that prevent them from being effective? So even though we all have individual tasks and activities, everyone is part of a team. Some teams are very tightly connected, both physically and in terms of the tasks, or teams may be loosely connected, perhaps working together virtually or less frequently and on a more diverse set of activities. And some teams are even undefined on an organizational chart. The teams form out of the need to solve a problem or support a new initiative. Regardless, organizational success is dependent upon the many different teams that are working towards common goals across disciplines such as manufacturing and operations and even beyond. And lean plays a big part in helping those teams become effective. And many of those teams, even beyond manufacturing, can adopt lean principles across the organization to become better at what they do, reach corporate goals more effectively. So let's cover some of the key challenges first in terms of specifically, how teams are impacted. So again, this is very specific to the way teams are impacted today, but in general, very often teams, let me put a sticker on where I'm talking about so you can follow along. So let's talk first about how teams are somewhat disconnected in some cases. So when we talk about being disconnected, it could mean physically, organizationally, or mentally disconnected. Perhaps poor team relationships affect performance on a daily basis, but also teams, especially now, may be geographically separate, and sometimes it's unplanned. Perhaps, for example, in the current pandemic crisis where workers are asked to shelter at home or work remotely. When teams do meet, another form of challenge sometimes is a lack of structure in meetings. And so we all have team meetings, both regularly and as needed, and some are more effective than others. An effective team meeting is really one that helps the team reach their set goals in a disciplined way. And it often means that it has a format, a structure, an agenda, and provides guidance on how the teams can manage their time effectively to drive specific outcomes and actions. The time spent when teams meet like this, it's really valuable if you look at the cost, and it's important not to waste it. If we want teams to truly be effective and all of our meetings to be effective as possible, we need to be consistent in the methods we use to conduct them and the principles that we include. Now, unless people have formal training with these experiences from their life and career, it's unlikely that everyone will have the learned behavior that's really required to be effective and know the principles and methodologies that will truly make meetings effective. Now, decisions often require many different inputs and data, and it's a challenge to visualize all that information. Think about typical organizations in manufacturing and production operations. Think of all the information they may need to look at to solve a problem. Unless the information is available and easy to interact with, making decisions and solving problems becomes really complex and can take time if it's possible at all. Sometimes the organizations that we work in don't provide the proper empowerment to help teams solve their own problems. This might be because the organizations follow more of a top-down methodology. Not that this is a wrong methodology, but sometimes it prevents teams from working autonomously and can prevent the sort of free thinking and the generation of ideas that could drive improvements and help solve problems. And finally, we have something we all hate to deal with, which is complexity. Managing our daily tasks, whether the complexity comes from processes, data, or relationships, complexity is really the enemy of productivity and effectiveness. It's also the key failure for adoption of new methods and technology in the workplace. And teams, really struggle to drive improvements if they don't use the tools they're given. If the tools are too complex for them to use, they just won't adopt them to use them. And so all of these represent some key challenges that we have when we look at what we do today as we work in the teams we work in today. So how will 3D Lean help organizations face these challenges? Well, we strongly believe that regular practice and guidance of effective team behaviors can lead to these operational results and achievement of corporate goals and the addressing of these challenges. Having consistent and simple methods help reinforce those really valuable productive behaviors and minimize the wasted time and effort that we sometimes face. So we developed 3D Lean with lean principles in mind from the very beginning to enable this process, empowering and engaging teams to reach results through effective meeting animation. And we think it's best described by looking at these three key areas where we can provide value. And the first is around engagement. And we need to make sure we are building better team relationships, regardless of how we work or where we work, whether there are organizational barriers or physical barriers because we have to work remotely. Because we all work in teams, it's important for us to have good working relationships. And we provide value in this area by engaging the next generation workforce, regardless of where and how they work. Now, ideally, teams should always meet together in person around a physical whiteboard where it's easy to share ideas and information, but it's not always possible. But now that 3D Lean is available on the cloud, we can address teams in many different sorts of environments and contexts. We can still replicate much of the experience and value that a team would have in person, but make it accessible to anyone. So think of all the different teams, environments, and operational meetings we can additionally help facilitate by engaging people effectively. The second area that we think is important is the ability to reveal information. Think of all the rich 3D content that you might have in your library in terms of being able to model facilities, products, and processes. That's certainly a part of the Dassault Systèmes 3D Experience platform. And think of all the other information that teams have to manage in their own daily tasks. A key differentiator of 3D Lean, regardless of whether you're on the cloud or not, is the ability to include that information and be able to visualize it. The ability to look at complexity in a visual way is the way we all prefer to work. We all want to see a picture or watch a video instead of reading a document. And this greatly enhances the ability of teams to be effective. For example, the ability to see problems, to visualize what the solutions might be, the ability to clearly see metrics and goals, and the ability to take actions and see outcomes, to name just a few of those ways. We can also use visual guides to help structure team discussions. The inclusion of methods like the Ishikawa diagram, which we'll touch on very briefly in a real-life example, helps teams understand cause and effect and guides root cause analysis and brainstorming. So the combination of this structure and content provides value for teams by helping to reveal possibilities. And finally, the third area of focus for us in looking at how to address team challenges is the area of improvement. And this is the primary value. Specifically, we're trying to enable continuous improvement and step improvement. The outcome of a single large improvement project may be significant, but the ability to change the behavior of many teams so they consistently work autonomously and effectively can be really transformational to an organization. And we believe that opportunities for improvement are all around us. By guiding teams with the right behavior and methods, we can continuously capitalize on their knowledge and know-how to improve in every meeting, every day. And 3D Lean is one of the enabler to unlocking this value. So in summary, we're all connected to each other in the context of teams and have to work together effectively to deliver results. There are many challenges that prevent us from truly engaging, from physical distance to complex information and lack of effective behaviors. But we believe 3D Lean is an essential application to drive value in this area with the combination of engaging teams in effective ways, visualizing rich content and information to reveal possibilities, and guiding behaviors for continuous improvement. So what we'd like to do now is actually show you 3D Lean in action and talk about some of the ways that you can actually put this into action and address some of those challenges, show you some of the concepts live. And we're going to do that through 3 use cases. We're going to look at a first use case, which is around sort of a traditional manufacturing lean operations flash 5, flash 30 meeting, and how we can help facilitate that very traditional sort of meeting. We're going to look at how it helps in problem solving, and we're going to take a specific case where we're going to look at a problem being solved. And we're also going to look at a more expansive situation where we're going to look at business ideation and how we can facilitate strategy and business operations improvements at a much larger scale. So let's start by looking at the manufacturing-oriented flash 5, flash 30 meetings as an example. I'm going to start with the flash 5 meeting. And what we're going to do here is take the role of Jim Davis, who's a supervisor for a production line in our facility. And we're making parts and components for turbines, specifically for blisks, which are part of the turbofan assembly. And let me just take a second here to orient you a little bit more to the what you're seeing, because we use the interface to show some content for the presentation, but this is where it becomes functional. So along the sides of the screen, you can see that we have information that we can use to set up meetings, to customize the screen, organize some of our documents. And we have a number of different boards within this particular screen which allow us to organize content. So we can have a variety of different content. It's an overall very modern look and feel, but we can drill in and provide visualization to what we're seeing. So here we can see a link to perhaps some of our three-dimensional information, the model that we have of some of our facilities, and anything that's contained in the 3D Experience platform we can simply use here, and we can go and use it to annotate. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. We can have content such as videos. We've got a video here we're going to look at. We can link to our MES systems for product specifications, or really whatever content we would like to bring in, we can do it using this application. Specifically, some of the mechanisms we have built in are action logs and problem logs. So let's go through the Flash 5 meeting, how it's set up, and take you through a typical use case in this particular example. So again, I'm Jim Davis, supervisor for the production line. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our meeting first. And so we're going to set up a meeting. It's going to be a Flash 5 meeting, so it's going to last for 5 minutes. And we basically just pick the content that we want to go through. So we want to do a roll call first. We're going to go through our health and safety cost. We're going to look at who's working on what particular workstation today. And you can see here through some of our KPIs that most are in the green, but quality is not. So we definitely want to look at quality as part of that. And then we are also going to look at the action log at the end. And that's all I do to set up the meeting. It's got my agenda. It's got the topics that are important. It provides discipline and structure, but it's adaptable to whatever type of meeting or whatever content we need to do. So from here, we would actually go ahead and just simply start the meeting. We'll start off with the roll call, which is the first out of the 5 different topics that I had. So we can see who's in or who's out. The green indicates that someone is here and active. And remember, this is typically an in-person meeting on a shop floor, but these people could be engaged remotely. They could be logged in through an iPad. They could be around the other side of the world. Now, in a manufacturing example, that's not always the case, but it gives you an idea of exactly how people are connected. So we know who's here. And the next step in our meeting as we move on is to look at the health and safety costs. Now I'm going to simulate a situation here where we had an incident. Up until now, July's been great, but here we're on July 12th, and I'm going to say we had a dangerous situation here. And for that, what I need to do is just provide a little bit of detail of what happened. So I'm going to go to my tools and create a little sticker here. And I could use my finger if it was a touchscreen device, like a large touchscreen or an iPad. I'm going to type here. It's easier for me in this particular situation. I'm going to say we had a situation where the operator didn't respect the lifting rules. Obviously, we want our workers to be safe. And so this is a problem. I'm going to actually put it in a purple color. I'm just going to say that's something that we need to make a note of. And furthermore, we need to make an action from that. So again, let me switch to a slightly different color. I'm going to say what we need to do is to review the safety rules for lifting. Okay, and create an action related to that. I'm going to attach it to that note. And this is all about making sure we have action, we have accountability, and we follow through with actions that need to happen. Okay, so that will become something we'll look at later on. The next we're going to take a look at is who's here and who's working in what particular workstation. So I have my team here on the right hand side. So I'm literally going to take and drag people over to their respective workstations for who's going to be assigned to which specific workstation for the day. Oops, come on there. And we're going to have Jean work on our workstation number 4 here. Okay, and of course myself, I'll be available for the team as a general supervisor around the operations area. Okay, so now we said that we had a quality issue with part of our production, and so we've got a problem with some of these components we're making. The blisk, it's getting scratched, and so we want to make sure we make a note of that. So again, we're going to go back to our actions, and we're going to say that we need to have an alert that there is a quality deviation on workstation 4, let's say. And we're going to make that an action that we're going to have to alert. And we want to alert the quality team about this. You notice I spelled quality wrong there. So let me just get back and change that. And so one of the things we want to do here is to provide a little bit of context to this. And so if we alert a team about this, we want them to see actually what's happening. So I'm going to take a picture of this screen, and that way, when they look at this note, when it shows up on any action item in the end, you can see this, put a little paperclip there. I can come and I've got some context behind it, so I can see what's happening and why. Okay. And then finally we come to our action log. You can see as we've been creating these actions throughout the meeting, they've been showing up here as part of the meeting. And so we've got some actions here from that we've done earlier today. We've welcomed our new employee, we've cleaned that workstation, but the review safety lifting rules is something we need to do today. The quality deviation is something we need to alert to a further team. So this is something we need to cascade down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at our teams here, and we look at other teams, and we're going to talk about this in our Flash 30 meeting slightly later. We're going to add that, and that now becomes an action item for the next team to look at. And then finally, we've completed all of that, and so we will end the meeting. And the last thing we needed to do from that meeting, obviously, was look at the lifting rule videos. And here you can see that we're accessing that content, and I will let it run just for a second. But again, you get an idea that we can provide rich content and bring it into the meeting to make it worth part of the meeting. Okay, so that represents the end of our Flash 5 meeting. Covered all the topics, shown you how we can get rich content into the meeting. We can engage people, whether they're remote or in person. Shows accountability. Shows some of the permanence of creating actions and context and information, how we can cascade actions from this team meeting to other team meetings across the organization. So now we're going to move straight into our Flash 30 meeting. So as Jim Davis, the supervisor for production, I'm going to take part in a meeting with my manager, who's going to look at some of the issues and items that came out of the Flash 5 meeting. So the first thing you'll notice that it's familiar, it's a consistent environment, but again, it's been adapted to the new context of this particular type of meeting and what we need to cover today. So if we look at the action log for this particular Flash 30 meeting, you can see here how the action is cascaded over to this team meeting board, and the quality deviation is something that we're going to look at as part of this meeting. In this particular view, we have a more expansive view of different areas of operational effectiveness. Safety is one of them. So obviously we looked at our safety costs across. We had that incident that we need to look at. We can also drill into other sorts of information like injuries, in terms of the body map, days since the last accident. And I'd like to use this to show you a different sort of way of engaging people. And we talk about gamification as a common way to interact with employees. And so here's a great example of one of the games that you could set up to use within Teams. In this particular case, we're looking at different methodologies for driving safety and whether they are low benefit, high benefit, low cost or high cost. And you can have multiple people in the team interacting simultaneously at this to drag the different things like social distancing, not gathering in groups, high benefit in those two, wearing protective gear, getting new protective gear might be a higher cost but high benefit. And so this is a great way of, again, adapting 3D Lean to help people engage in trying to solve problems in a way which is fun. Back to our problem in hand, if we come to the quality board that we want to look at, safety is there. Quality board, we can see again the non-conformance that we have in terms of quality. So we want to drill into that. Now, one of the things that we can do dynamically is bring in some additional rich content. So let's say we managed to take a picture of the item that was offending us. And so here's the blisk that we were indeed making. We can mark up this item to say, this is the area on the blisk where we're getting some non-conformance, getting scratches on the blisk. And because of this, it enables us to provide a bit more information and detail, but we can't solve it in the Flash 30 meeting. We really need to bring in our quality team. So let's go ahead and create an action item and cascade this again. So let's put open problem with problem solving team. Might be a quality team or a specific engineering team that we want to alert of this, and so we want to assign that to the team. These are the other teams we have available as a problem solving team. Go ahead and do that, and of course we want to take a quick snapshot of that so they have the context that goes with it as well. Because we have this quality issue, obviously I think we're going to have to mark ourselves as perhaps not in the green anymore. We're going to have to change our sticker here, unfortunately, to a red till we get this fixed. So that's an action that we've set in motion. If we look at some of our other boards in terms of cost, everything looks fine there. In terms of our delivery, this is again where we're linking to perhaps manufacturing execution systems and scheduling systems, and perhaps from a scheduling point of view, because we're getting these quality issues at this specific area of production, maybe it's something we need to do some replanning for. So again, we can make a quick note of that and say that we need to review the production plan, create an action related to that. That's something we can assign to Jim to get done, and we'll be able to take that as an action item as well. We come back to other areas of the meeting that we want to cover. If we look at the people board, the people board is where we can look at some of the training and soft skills that have been done, or in this particular case, we've updated it for June, but it's now July, so this has not been done. So this is something we need to, again, create a small action for to make sure this gets done. So we need to update and review the skills matrix. Create that as an action. Maybe this one is particularly time sensitive, so we want to put a little sticker on it to show that and make sure we assign that to Jim so that it gets done as soon as possible. So finally, again, after going through all the details of the meeting, we want to look at our action log and see what we have captured. I'm going to clean that up a little bit, make it look a bit nicer. There we go. So the quality deviation we have looked at, we have done that. Jim is going to take the action to review the production plan and update and review the skills matrix. And then we have our problem open with the problem solving team. We're waiting for them to pick that up, and that will become the basis for our next meeting. Okay, so the next use case we're going to look at is around problem solving. And this is a continuation from some of the information that we found from our previous Flash 5 and Flash 30 meetings. and the way we've cascaded information down to yet another team to help solve the problem of the scratches that we're having on this particular piece of production material. So again, you'll see a familiar interface, but a different adaptation again to a different team, different context, and different purpose. In this case, trying to find some root cause analysis behind what might be causing this particular production problem. So if we look at our action log, this is where we'd start. Here's the problem that we're working on with the problem solving team. So that's now moving into what we're going to work on straight away. So one of the methods that we use, and this is part of the, how we talk about lean being built into 3D lean and being part of the DNA, is some of the mechanisms that we can use as part of the principles to determine root cause analysis. This Ishikawa diagram or herringbone diagram is a good example of that. But there are many different types of tools and mechanisms we can use to provide the backdrop for problem solving or whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. So those are many that are built in, and if there are others which we do not have a part of built in, you can include them and make them your own template and use them as part of your own problem solving process or meeting facilitation process, whatever you like. The Ishikawa diagram focuses on potential root causes of problems potentially related to manpower, machine, environment, material, and method. You can see here we've already gone through some analysis as part of the teamwork to look at manpower. Is it part of lack of training? Is it part of the machine? Is it part of the environment, dust in the machine? Well, we've created action items based upon this problem solving to try and alleviate some of those. Problem of the raw material, we've checked all of that. So when it comes down to the problem, and remember here's our sticky notes here with the context, the image behind it, so we can see what's happening. One of the things we might do is look out to our communities or peer experts to find out, what might be the reason. And perhaps one of those might be that the robot configuration is wrong. So we can move from here seamlessly to a view of the particular workstation that's responsible for manufacturing and transporting the Blisk. And if we take a look, perhaps in the communities, what we've found is that in some cases they've seen that the path of the robot arm might make a difference in how the material is handled. And so in our particular case, we've been used to setting up the robot arm where it's taking more of a horizontal across and then down path. And that might have an impact in the way it scratches or touches the material as it's coming off the end of this conveyor. So perhaps what might be better is if we had, let me do this in a different color. If we took a configuration change and made it so that the robot arm came down and then across as part of the new path that might change that. So this is something that we might want to put into action. So we would create an action around this to, let's say, change the path of the robot at workstation. Okay, so we can create that. Again, what we'll do is we'll take a picture of what we're talking about here so we can have it in context, and we can create that and then again assign it to an engineer as part of the team to see if we can get that done. So again, it goes back to how we can interact dynamically and visually with information that might help us understand what might be part of the root cause of our problem, how we can explain how to make changes and assign actions to try and potentially solve that. So in terms of our action log, we can set that as something we're going to do today. Again, let me clean that up so I don't do it very nicely. And that would become part of the action items today, and the assignment would be handled appropriately by the appropriate person. So there are many different ways you can solve problems, and again, some of the key principles behind it, we believe, is first of all, being able to engage the right people by assigning actions, by bringing them into the meeting. Again, we could have a number of people looking at this board simultaneously from around the world, and also by being able to visualize information so we can see what's happening. We can take a look at information related to the product, the process, the facility, the workers that are involved, and use the mechanisms entrenched in 3D Lean to try and come up with actions which will help us improve continuously. For the third and final use case, I want to take you completely out of the shop floor, out of manufacturing completely, and go beyond traditional manufacturing operations to business ideation. So this is a use case that could be applied at any strategic level in an organization, to an executive team, to an operations team, looking at business process in general. And I just want to give you a glimpse into what it might look like if you use 3D Lean for dramatically different problem solving and business ideation. So here we have a view into the Oxos organization that we've created, and we're looking at this again through the 3D Experience platform, which is a great way to organize some content and have collaboration between stakeholders. And this overview tells us that Oxos is a connective and responsive enterprise, as we'll strive to be. Particularly, this company makes solutions for homes and buildings in terms of smart home technology. And so their sales are significant. They are global in organizational reach, trying to tap into a growing market in the smart home. And these are some of the devices and items that they make, which are designed to be connected to people and their experiences. And like many companies, perhaps just as part of normal business, they're trying to grow. They're trying to capitalize on knowledge and know-how in the organization to try and find ways to improve and to grow and capitalize on new markets. Also trying to look at how they can ensure digital continuity as people move between their home and their office, what mobile services could be provided to clients, how to transform business to meet the new market of people who are living in multiple places. And maybe they're just also struggling with disruption due to the pandemic and other sort of significant influences on their organization and manufacturing. So this is an overview of the organization, and one that will try and help and provide a way to facilitate some of these questions. If we take a look at some of the ideas they may have already had or been sharing, we can take a look at some of the conversation they've had around how to reinvent the Oxos organization. They've had some sales meetings and how to keep sales meetings interactive. Research and development has had some ideas. From the support perspective, they have some thoughts coming back from what consumers are saying about they get lost when they use the products. They're not intuitive enough, perhaps. Human resources has challenges related to talent acquisition during the confinement crisis, marketing, and so on and so on. So you can see that there's already some great information sharing about people's thoughts and ideas on what could be done to improve. The challenge is always, how to organize and facilitate these different pieces of information into something that actually creates action and comes to a consensus in how to move forward as an organization and to improve. So this is where we think 3D Lean would be a tremendous opportunity to bring these teams together, to organize some of this information. And the end result here of all this conversation back and forth is to have a workshop so they can actually come together, share the information, visualize some of the data, try and find ways to improve and come up with some action items that they can move forward with over time. If I just minimize this window here a little bit, you can see that we actually have 3D Lean built into the platform as part of one of the widgets that we can put in place. And now we get a look into the team boards that have been set up specifically for the Oxos workshop to reinvent the organization. So once again, you see the same environment, but you see a different view again. We've adapted it again for the context of this specific meeting that we're trying to enable. In this case, a broad cross-department, cross-functional team with lots and lots of information sharing. And in this particular case, since there are so many people involved in the team in so many different divisions and organizations, they've actually split up the overall workshop into multiple different sub-teams, so they can work on different parts of the plan and break it down into different brainstorming sessions based upon subsets of that information. So again, one environment, many views. It's an ability to bring everyone together, to engage with everyone on common content and provide actions and accountability for what needs to be done. With a team this large, it's unlikely that everyone was in the same place to do it standing around a virtual touch screen. So in many cases, people will have participated in this remotely from different parts of the globe. Every different division of the organization is probably located somewhere slightly different. So it's able to accommodate and connect with people even though they might not be physically located. You can also see in terms of the adaptability that each team has their own workspace and their own view. So while we have an overall team journey map, which includes thoughts from the entire customer lifecycle and the customer journey map, we can see that each team worked on the problem in their own different ways. And so this particular team A, working on people and ecosystem, used one methodology to come together to find out how the personas and the consumers they deal with, what they think of, what they're feeling. Team B, not quite as far along. They haven't completed their mechanism here to put together their thoughts, but this is the mechanism they'll use in terms of understanding the pains and gains from a strategy and innovation point of view, what people think and feel, what they see, what they say and do, and what they hear. Again, all good ways to take the high-level information and start breaking it down and facilitating problem solving and analysis to come to a conclusion by themselves. Team D took a very different approach. This was the in-person team. They had the ability to actually work around a virtual touchscreen themselves. So you'll see a lot of drawn comments from this, people actually using their fingers and animating the meeting themselves personally, taking on action items. This is the internal operations team looking at different aspects of the organization and how they can onboard people, how they use social networks, how they review customer requirements in R&D. And then finally, Team B also had strategy and innovation, also a go-to-market strategy to come up with some thoughts about how to move forward. So again, the value here is that we can connect all these different people in a common environment. We can allow them to work in ways that make sense to them. We can allow them to work in ways that's extremely engaging, free form. It allows for empowerment. It allows for ideation. And then the output of this would most likely go into some project planning tools that would flow from ideation to actually execution. And that's one thing that we dovetail onto very nicely is all of the ideation ideas, the actions that come out of 3D Lean in terms of whether it's manufacturing, problem solving or ideation can then flow seamlessly into project planning tools to actually drive execution of those ideas. So that's a very quick view across 3 different use cases of 3D Lean. You see some distinct commonality across all 3, things that flow in terms of the way we handle information, the environment, the look and feel, but each one is different in context. Each one is managed very simply, very cleanly, and each manages to engage across teams and across organizations and connect people together to try and get a positive outcome and to drive improvement in operations. So now we've seen it in action. Let's talk about why we would use it, specifically around the value and the possibilities for where it could be used across different types of organizations and different types of industries. So we spoke about delivering sustainable benefits using 3D Lean. And again, I think if you look back at the 3 sort of keywords we use, engage, reveal, and improve, we can start to see some of the ways that we deliver a benefit and drive value. So from the engage perspective, simplifying the interactions, making it easier for people to connect and work together, engaging them in natural ways, and ultimately empowering teams to work autonomously. Some of the value and feedback that we've had from customers and users say that a significant amount of team members now feel more involved in meetings because they're more engaged, and team members find positive impact to their daily tasks. In terms of revealing and using visual information to manage some of that facilitation, driving interactions with 3D content and data, we find that we're able to transform data and team knowledge and know-how into meaningful evidence for all people involved. And we can really discover the art of the possible. And again, using those lean principles to drive and guide those meetings and interactions. So some of the value, again, we've seen at customers, 100% increase in issues identified because they're able to visually see what might be the issue. And then the actions also correspondingly increase to take care of those resolutions. So we do find more issues that we wouldn't have found otherwise, and we resolve them in a more effective way. And 92% of team members said they found information easier to find because it's visually there in front of them, a part of it. And it's all about improvement, right? So we want to make sure that we're improving as an organization, and that comes from improvement of teams. So the ability to assign and track decisions and actions in real time, making lean thinking part of the culture of the organization is a key part. Again, you can have a significant Kaizen event or a lean initiative, but it becomes a one-off. The idea is to embed that capability, that behavior into teams so they're doing it at every meeting as part of their standard sort of mode of operation, capitalizing on those gains every meeting, every day. And once you can do that, you start to really scale those benefits because you're enabling and empowering multiple teams to become better and better at what they do, more efficient, and drive improvement in a continuous way. So there's lots of tangible tactical benefits in terms of time savings, but in terms of productivity improvements, even just a small nudge here will have a significant impact on the overall benefit and reaching business goals and driving sustainable benefits across the organization. So that's why we should use it. Now let's take a look at where we should use it. And really, the use cases for 3D Lean are virtually unlimited. Certainly, there are core use cases within manufacturing and certain industries where it's very, very applicable and applies directly to what's already happening today in a paper and pencil sort of fashion. But if we look across the different industries that could be supported and some of the use cases, you can see that there's a dramatic variation and ability to apply this in lots of different situations. So in transportation and mobility, of course, for Flash 5, Flash 30 meetings, but also for quality management, for pilot production runs, all the way up to very strategic uses for perhaps new vehicle launch and to do ideation and brainstorming around that. In high technology, prototyping, new product introduction, great ways to use 3D Lean for ideation. And in aerospace and defense, there are certainly plenty of opportunities in lean manufacturing, operations team engagement, and even in staff operations for aerospace outside of manufacturing for airlines and airports in terms of passenger flow, workforce reintegration and coming back from social distancing, for example. Lots and lots of different ways in which it could be applied there. Take a look at a couple of other quick examples in CPG and R, consumer packaged goods, quality control labs, logistics operations. CC&T has some really interesting, this is construction, cities and territories, some really interesting potential projects around smart city improvements, sustainability projects, infrastructure scoping, and so on. And then finally, for every other sort of case, we looked at business ideation for general and small and medium business. There are a whole slew of general departmental sort of operations, initiatives and teams where 3D Lean could be a great benefit to drive some of that improvement that would help across all facets of the organization. Okay, so where do we go from here? Let's talk quickly about next steps and some of the things that you might want to take a look at or take advantage of. So I've just displayed around the next steps here some of the places that you could look at for more information. Our website, we have our DELMIA specific operations overview and capabilities. We've got some videos that you can take advantage of around 3D Lean. We have our DELMIA communities where you can interact with peers around different facets of operations, including collaborative operations, user champion program, and the DELMIA blog. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved, lots of ways you can get additional information. We have some specific next steps we'd like to talk about. The first is we'd like to invite you to take a demo challenge. And that's what we call the ability to experience 3D Lean. So we'd invite you to reach out and connect with us and request that you'd like to join a collaborative meeting. We'll set up the environment for you. We'll give you the access so you can log on. You can take part in an interactive meeting, and we'll give you that environment to try for yourself and experiment and look at the different ways you can pull information in and give you the ability to really try 3D Lean for yourself at your own pace. For more information, we'd love you to reach out to us at delmia.webinars@3ds.com. That's the way you can get a hold of us. And for more customer stories and videos, go to go.3ds.com/delmia. So I hope that we've given you a fantastic overview of all the different ways that you can experience lean operations and continuous improvement in your organization. We hope that we've given you a great look at a fantastic new application that's available on the cloud to enable all of this engagement with your teams, how you can share information, reveal the art of the possible to them, and how you can drive improvement. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future.